Oh, let's break down UFC 219. It's a great card, man. But for the end of the year show, not a slobber knocker, as the kids say. If you're a balls deep fight fan, it's a good one. There's some great matchups on there. But yeah, it's not going to, I bet it does.
They still left this on here.
I bet it does 400 pay-per-view buys. I'll say 450. Yeah, I'll say 450. I'll say between 350 and 450. All right? That's what I think happens. Start with the first fight on the main card. You got Carlos Condit versus Neil Magny. Neil Magny is an underdog here. This is what, for me, which is alarming about this fight. Carlos Condit, his last fight, talked about retirement, talking about how he can't take the right punches anymore. Then all of a sudden, he wants to come back, face Neil Magny. Neil Magny can beat anyone in the world. He's beat Hector Lombard. He's beat Kelvin Gastelum. He's beat Johnny Hendricks. He's beat some of the best guys in the world. The only time Neil Magny ever has any kind of hiccups inside that octagon is when he fights a world-class gentleman on the ground, like Dos Anjos, who took him down, did work, or Damian Maia. He struggles with that. In the Lorenz Larkin fight, he just didn't take it serious and got murked, in that first round. But other than that, look at the guys he's beat, man. He beat some tough customers, super tough customers. Tim Means, Dirty Bird, beat him by decision. Alex Garcia's a good one. Eric Silva, decision. Kelvin Gastelum, decision. Hector Lombard, TKO. Johnny Hendricks, decision. And then, when he fights those upper echelon guys, they just do work against him on the ground. But he doesn't really have to worry about that with Carlos Condit. Carlos Condit, he's going to want to keep it standing. He's one of the most dynamic guys on the feet. But Carlos has fallen on hard times. His last win was against a weathered Thiago Alves. That was in Brazil. Thiago Alves, goddamn, I can't believe he's still doing it. So, but he's fallen on some tough times, man. He lost to Damian Maia. He lost to Robbie Lawler. And that Damian Maia one was he just got outclassed. And, but then that Robbie Lawler split decision, which was for the world title, was fight of the night. So that one's back and forth. That's probably his best outing in a long time. That could have went either way. The thing that's alarming to me is how bad does Carlos Condit want to do this anymore? He's not going to take Neil Magny down. He doesn't want to play that game. Neil Magny has beat some of the most dangerous guys in the world on the feet. He's not a knockout artist, but Neil Magny, if you play his game, he's tough to beat. Great cardio. As the rounds go on, he gets better, sticks behind his jab. He just outpoints you. So Neil is an underdog here. I like Neil as a dog. I think Neil beats him.
Boom.
Second fight, you got Calvillo versus Carla Esparza. Man, I know Cynthia Calvillo's huge. She's a favorite here. The UFC obviously wants her to be the next big thing is in this division, especially when it comes to females. They're looking for a next star. She's getting a bunch of push behind her. You see her on all the marketing and all that stuff. She trains Team Alpha Male. She's had some good wins. She's had some that were suspect. I thought she did beat Calderwood. She's obviously a monster on the ground. Her striking's getting better. I just feel like there's this huge disrespect when it comes to Esparza, who's your first champion at that weight class. Remember, she won off the Ultimate Fighter. Remember, she beat Rose, who's your current champion. I don't know. And I think she beat Marcos in that split decision back in February. I don't get it, man. She just doesn't get a lot of respect. The UFC, even though she was the strawweight champion, the first of all time, since then, she just hasn't got a lot of respect. She lost the belt to Joanna. Okay, nothing to hang your head on. And then, she had a kind of a long layoff, hasn't been that relevant. But I feel like they bury her on these undercards, and I just don't get it. And I know the UFC wants Calvillo to be the next big thing, and she has the mentality, she has the warrior spirit, and I love watching her. But this isn't a cakewalk for Calvillo. And I know the UFC is just putting all their baskets in her kind of, their eggs in her basket. The MMA guys really don't work like that. We've seen over and over. They do not care who you want to be marketable, and who you're going to sell your fights after. So I think this is a closer fight than people think. I know Khabib is a beast on the ground, but as far as his wrestling could be the difference. As a dog, so if I'm trying to make money, betting on Esparza here is not a bad deal. If it stays on their feet, it's not like Khabib's this amazing striker. I don't see this huge disparity in strengths and weaknesses here. Khabib's probably going to win, but if I'm looking to make money on betting, I bet on Esparza. What is she? She's a plus 215, plus 245 for some. So not a terrible bet, but Cynthia more than likely than not will win this fight, and by finish. And that's what the UFC is hoping for. If you see all the marketing and stuff like that, she's a monster, man. And this would be her 5th win this year. She had 5 wins in the UFC.
Cynthia or Esparza?
Cynthia, right? How many times has she fought this year? This will be her 4th, sorry.
2, 3.
So she fought 1, 2, 3. This will be her 4th fight this year. 4-0. She were to win this one. You know, the girl's doing work, man. She's a serious threat. You know, they need a star there. She's definitely, she's an up-and-comer, that's for sure. And you can tell the UFC wants this. So she should win, but I look at that matchup, I go, God, it's kind of a tough matchup for her. You know, Carla was the former champ. She's beat Rose. She's faced tougher competition. Cynthia's not exactly a wizard on the feet. I view that it's definitely, if Cynthia doesn't get a finish or take her back, or if she gets your back in so much goddamn trouble, but if she doesn't get her back, this thing's definitely going to decision. Also, her nickname's the Cookie Monster. So we don't have Rivera Lineker. Why the UFC still has it on the page. Details. Leads us to the co-main event. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Edson Barboza. I will say this. If I had to give you one lock, like one for sure pick on the card, which I'm not that sure about any of these picks, Khabib would be my pick. They said, who's most likely to get out there unscathed with a win? I'd say Khabib. The only problem I have, look at his record for God's sakes, 24-0. The only problem I have with Khabib is the long layoff. He hasn't fought since November of 2016, which is against Michael Johnson. Obviously, he ate that punch. People were like, oh, man, his striking's a little suspect. He got wobbled. I guess he ate it a little wobbled and did work and made Michael Johnson quit, for God's sakes. He submitted him, but still. Remember, he's punching him, looking at Dana and go, I don't want to do this. Give me a title shot, man. I don't want to have to keep doing this. And then he ragdolled the guy who's probably going to fight for the world title at welterweight with Rafael dos Anjos. I mean, literally, go back and watch that fight. Ragdolled him. But the thing with Khabib, he's just not active enough, so he loses his hype. He loses all the steam and momentum he has because he misses weight, liver failure, doesn't fight often, but there's a reason they still rank him so high because you realize his skill set. It sounds like he has a nutritionist. How he hasn't had one before this is beyond me. I have no fucking clue how he gets to this point without having a legit nutritionist. So now that weight's not an issue, Khabib's going to be a real problem. I know Barboza's on this win streak, and he's probably the best technical striker in the division, especially at 55. And, you know, he's a nightmare, but stylistically, it's just a nightmare of a matchup for Barboza. It really is, man. I know Barboza doesn't want to entertain the ground game, and he's going to be anti-wrestling and all that, but when you get to Khabib's level, you have to be able to grapple to beat this guy. You literally have to. Unless in that early stage, if he can get something off with a knee and wobble him and get Khabib to start kind of second guessing and get into that brawling with him, you know, Khabib's the best, one of the best in the world because he closes the distance without taking damage. And once he gets any sort of grip on you, especially with both hands, you're going down. So you got to be able to stand back up and recover, but I just don't see him being able to do that. I really don't, man. I think Barboza is going to struggle in this fight. He's one of the best in the world, but when it comes down to straight up matchups, this is a nightmare for him. It just is. You know, he's beat Anthony Pettis, beat Gilbert Melendez, and they beat Dariush with that flying knee, which was amazing. But before that flying knee, Dariush was doing work. And then his last loss came from Tony Ferguson, which was a Darce choke. So I see this fight, I will say a TKO or submission, late second round, early third round for Khabib. But if I had to pick one, the ring rust bothers me a little bit, but Khabib has so much experience, and he's such a nightmare of a matchup for Barboza. My lock is Khabib on this fight card. This brings us to the main event. Cyborg, Holly Holm, long time coming. Cris Cyborg, finally your UFC featherweight champion. Holly has, people ask me, has Holly competed at this weight class before? Not in the UFC, but she has competed in boxing at a heavier weight class. For Holly, right? Interesting story. Undefeated. Finally gets to Ronda Rousey, right? Gets that epic head kick, probably the most recognized knockout in UFC history. And then she falls on tough times where, she's beaten Miesha Tate and then loses the fight with 2 minute 30 left, or where the fuck it was in that last round. So she loses the belt, right? And then she gets to Shevchenko, which is this big card in Chicago on Fox, loses that by decision. So you're like, God damn it. And then she fights for the featherweight title, the inaugural featherweight title. And I thought she actually beat Jermaine Duranami, but they gave Jermaine, which is some bullshit. And, the court, they don't overturn it. There's so many issues with that. Jermaine vacates the belt because she's scared as fuck as Cyborg. And she ruined her career doing that. And then, then she gets to Betch Correa and head kicks her. But before then, didn't knock your hair back. It took to the third round to knock out a Betch Correa. So when it comes to Cyborg, and people say, well, Cyborg has that similar style to Ronda Rousey where she'll go berserker and rush her, and that sets up Holly for the counters, and she can create the knockout. Yes and no. Cyborg and Ronda are completely different strikers. Cyborg's such a much more high-level striker. Such a high-level striker. You can see it in her freaking Muay Thai bout against that monster, that undefeated monster where it went to decision. She ate some of the most vicious shots and kept going. But, Cyborg is different animal. Now that Cyborg's with Perello as a boxing coach, we saw in the Tanya Evinger fight where she didn't go berserker. She was calm, controlled, had a great balance, center, low center of gravity, and she kind of stuck to her jab, picked her shots. She's still a headhunter, she's still a monster, but was more under control. And when I see that version of Cyborg, I go, oh man, people are screwed. People are super, super screwed. So, and here's the other thing you gotta worry about if you're in the Holly Holm camp. What if Cyborg goes, all right, you know what? Holly's a lot quicker than I thought. I'm really not getting my right hand loose. I'm really not landing shots, these body shots. What I'm going to do is take her down and grapple. Then you're going to have problems if you're a Holly Holm fan, because Cyborg is a monster on the ground. She's a black belt. She grapples all the time with that Gabby Garcia, who's literally a monster. Just by sheer size, besides Mackenzie Dern, who she beat Mackenzie Dern, but Gabby Garcia is the best in the world as female grapplers. That's her main training partner. So, and she only grapples with guys. So if she goes, you know what? I don't need to make this as exciting as everyone wants. I'm going to wrestle her and get the win and just stick to being the world champion. Now you have a bigger problem in your hands. So I look at this fight, I look all the way around, and I like both women. I think both are phenomenal fighters. And I think what's at stake in this fight is whoever wins this fight, Holly Holm or Cyborg, both can claim the title of greatest female fighter of all time. You look at Holly's resume, granted she's fallen on tough times, those previous 3, but from murking Ronda Rousey in her prime with a head kick knockout, the best knockout in UFC history, to beating Cyborg, who's the most feared and controversial female fighter of all time, if she were able to pull this off, she goes down in the history books as the best of all time. Best of all time. She has those blemishes with Jermaine Duranami, which is bullshit. Throw that out. Shevchenko, legitimate loss, but, and then the Miesha Tate fight, that's tough, but I just think the overall beating a Ronda and beating a Cyborg, that puts you at the top. Now, if Cyborg were to go in there and do what the bookies think and gets it done, she claims the title as the best female fighter of all time. So that being said, I think Cyborg wins, I will say TKO round 3. So let's wrap this up. I have Neil Magny via decision. I have Cavillo via submission. I have Khabib Nurmagomedov via TKO or submission, late second round, early third, and I have Cyborg via TKO due to punches, third round. If I want to make money on this and I want to bet on dogs, I'll parlay Neil Magny with Carla Esparza. My dog bet, which I feel comfortable putting money on, like a significant amount of money, would be Neil Magny. And then the one where I'm like, I get the odds are good, I guess I'll take it, would be Carla Esparza. Not super confident in Carla. I think Cynthia's going to get it done. But again, if I'm trying to make money, I'll parlay Neil Magny and Carla. But that, and the other one that I do like, which is sleeper, and we don't talk a lot about the undercards, would be Rick Glenn, Miles Jury. I like Rick Glenn as a dog too. If you know Rick Glenn, he's a bit of a nightmare. Miles Jury is on and off again. He has a lot more skill than Rick Glenn, but Rick Glenn has something to say. I think Rick Glenn could pull the upset too. So I always give you guys dogs, because obviously any show you listen to, they talk about the favorites and who's going to win. Of course you think this favorite's going to win. That's all fine and dandy, but everyone's saying the same shit. So if I'm looking to make money, I'm looking to bet, I'm looking to pick an upset. Maybe you're sitting around with your friends and you want to look smart or whatever the fuck you want to do. Rick Glenn, Miles Jury is one to look at too. And I like Rick Glenn via decision. The other one, Neil Magny, like I said, I like him most as a dog. That Rick Glenn one's fun too. And then Carla Esparza, I just don't like the disrespect. I know when a fighter feels disrespected, they're fighting for something more than the fighter who is on the good list of the UFC. So I tend to side with that fighter, and that's Carla in this aspect. That's why I like that Carla Cynthia fight. Great card though. Enjoy it, peeps. Enjoy it. Those are my picks.